Do a roll call. Vice Chair Kopp.
Here.
Commissioner Rennie.
Here.
Commissioner Ambrose.
Present.
Okay. Agenda item number 2, public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda.
Good afternoon and thank you. My name is Ellen Lee Zhao. I've been here many, many times. And I have been working for our city and county of San Francisco as a public social worker for more than 10 years. I am a union delegate for public employees. SEIU has more than 16,000 employees. I am also the Director of Public Relations for the California Civic Grand Jury Association, the San Francisco chapter, where that I train and practice good government practices. I do investigation about government corruption and government improvement. I have been coming to you many times, speaking to you in efficient, ineffective government practices, the government that is related to many things, such as government corruption. I also brought employees to Ethics Commission many times, except I was told the file was missing. It's never happened. Last time I spoke to you was in November 16 about unfair election processes. In San Francisco, the government has been bought and controlled by people who have money and power for many years. We are no longer a people government. Today, as an individual, I am here to request you ethics commissioners, again, to review our election process, especially the career politicians who are engaging in many super PACs, spending millions and millions of public matching dollars. This is from you and from your website, from Leanne right here, that you have said there's 23 candidates of whom, which is 10, participate, that took the public money, $1.19 million. In the June election, 2018, that is $2.96 million public money, matching money. Altogether in 2018, it's 4.16 matching funds, which is my public dollar, your public dollars. So here's what happened. As you remember, I came here many times. I expressed it to you. I was one of the 8 male candidates that I paid $6,500 application to join the race. I was nominated by the good neighborhoods throughout 11 districts. I went through the election process. I found many holes that is unfair and unjustified for campaign processes. During the election, I was not allowed to more than 20 public meetings that is organized by the super PAC, which is controlled by solely one party, Democrats only. As you all know, San Francisco is controlled by one party for many decades. There's no other voice, no Libertarian, no Republican, no Green Party, no nonpartisan, nothing, not a zip. It's all Democrats. And they are the ones schedule and frame everything publicly and invite only Democrat candidates and tell the public in public library, in City Hall, and there's only the top 3 people, or the top 4 people that frame San Franciscans to mislead them. I am here and asking you, if you want to do an ethics commission, which you have a duty to, our voting system is corrupt, our ethics commission department is corrupt, because they're not doing investigation. They are not relay the message to follow the law. And you know, many of you are attorneys in here. This is a United States Constitution. No law above the Constitution, and no one above the law. And many of you sitting in here serving the city, maybe it's about time for you to review our city. Why that we have so many public problems but no solutions? I'm asking for help because it is a public entity, it's public money, 4.16 public dollars that is misleading, and you allow them to go to libraries and city halls.
Okay, thank you.
And here you go, for public records.
Thank you. Next, we'll turn to the consent calendar items. Any public comment on the consent calendar items, which are draft minutes for the Ethic Commission's November 16th, 2018 regular meeting, and the Ethics Commission regular meeting schedule for calendar year 2019.
I note, Madam Chairwoman, that I've given Leanne Pelham some non-substantive grammatical and syntax changes.
On the minutes. Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye. The motion to approve the minutes from the November 2018 meeting and the schedule for calendar year 2019 are approved unanimously. For agenda item number 5, Commissioner Lee is...
Number 4?
No, 3 and 4 were taken together.
Oh, okay.
So on agenda item number 5, the discussion and possible action on draft ordinances regarding the public financing program. Commissioner Lee is unable to attend today's meeting, and she has requested that we put this over to the, excuse me, the January 2019 meeting in order for her to be able to participate in the discussion and any possible vote. So I would like to do that at this time. And Executive Director Pelham?
Thank you, Chair Chu. I also would just note we did receive some public comment Wednesday and yesterday regarding the item 5 and request to continue it to January. So those communications are on the public table for anybody interested and have been shared with the Commission.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You didn't ask.
Oh, I still have to, public comment on this item? 5? Yes, we are moving this over to discuss in January. But yes, you have the opportunity for public comment.
I work with the public services. We have 60 public bargaining team members. I am one of the bargaining team. We receive many complaints about Ethics Commission and finances. Our public should not be supporting illegal activities that is funded by super PAC. You and I know this is deep state. Deep state, they hire people on purpose, they appoint people on purpose, and we, the people, government, suffer. So I'm asking you, if you want to talk about the finance and public finance, think about some kind of regulations that limit it. When I say limited means maybe not over 10,000, maybe not up to 5,000. I brought it to you. Many of the supervisors, Board of Supervisors, they receive money from recreational cannabis operators directly that is reported at Ethics Commissions. How can the public trust people who are super PAC related, receive money and become a Board of Supervisor, and then pass all the laws regardless? 85% people within 300 feet, 600 feet, 1,000 feet, and says no cannabis needed. But the Board of Supervisors passing the law loosely against the federal government and support an illegal federal drugs to drug people. See, I work for the Department of Public Health. Purposely supporting the drugs. It started from Ethics Commission. You cannot use the public dollars, $4.16, to support candidates who turn around and pass the law on purpose and abuse government power. People's government is for the people, support the people. San Francisco, we have 23,000 drug abusers, users, raise $2 billion a year. You drug people first and rehab later. Can you think about something? Can you have some kind of heart for protection for us? You can create laws and limited financial matching dollars. If the super PAC people continue to do so, that's what happened to us. The people want changes in San Francisco. They are not allowed to change because they all supported by super PAC do not allow non-Democrats and non-super PAC people to participate. We will never see change unless you change the law to protect our public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
For the past several months, well, actually for the past month at this point, I've been investigating the Thousand Oaks borderline bar shooting, which was clearly a false flag operation.
Excuse
And
me,
the
Madam
funding from
Chairwoman.
that,
Yes,
this will
but-
be made, this will
Will
be, I am
the
laying
speaker
foundation.
identify himself?
My name is Thomas Bessie. The funding for that operation came through the Lilly Endowment of Indianapolis and also through a company called Indivisible Conejo, which is a super PAC, a 501c4. The money originally for that comes from a national initiative called Indivisible in D.C. However, a way to address the issues of super PACs would be to use the San Francisco business tax. Already, 501c4s are required to file their RRF-1 with the California Department of Justice, and that information of the individual donors is supposed to be unredacted. The same principle applies through the income tax return, which is effectively what the San Francisco gross receipts income tax does with the San Francisco treasurer. In other words, a 501c4 is an entity. Like any entity where the liability is limited, there is privilege attached with that as well as responsibility. One of those responsibilities can simply be to file an annual tax return with the business gross receipts and the expenditures in the city and county with the San Francisco treasurer and make that a public record, as is done with the RRF-1's filings. We have to, given the influence and the undue influence of super PACs, which nobody was expecting when this commission was set up, when the Fair Political Practices Act was passed, when the Ethics in Government Act was originally passed and then repealed and repassed kind of, sort of, maybe-ish, then the way to combat this is really with information. I also happen to think that the contribution limit is actually too low. Anybody who works in nonprofits understands that if you put your effort into cultivating a few large donors who may just be well-intentioned, you're going to actually get a lot more bang for your buck than rather pandering to the masses. So I do think that the $500 contribution limit is too low. But I suggest look at the business tax, look at the filings, and make those filings public. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chairwoman.
Commissioner Kopp.
Do you have a written analysis of your remarks?
I don't, but I have a memorandum that I outlining this plan that I created for Representative Tester.
Could you provide that to me?
I will do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment on agenda item number 5? No. Okay. Agenda item number 6, discussion of staff recommendations regarding amendments to campaign finance and conflict, of interest regulations.
Thank you, Chair Chu. This agenda item shows the next step in staff's review of the CFRO regs. Here you have in concept form what we are proposing as a set of comprehensive amendments to the regs. And this would do several things. One, it would fix where the regs no longer match the code, where the code has changed. It would provide clarity on new provisions in the code that the ACAO that went into effect this year has brought to the code. And it also helped to clarify areas where people have had problems with the code. They haven't understood it, or also with the regs. They haven't understood the regs. Some parts have been confusing. So these are our recommendations. At this point, they're here basically for informational purposes, for discussion purposes, if you have questions about them or if you have feedback. But at this point, there's no action necessary. We plan to, subject to feedback that we hear today and between today and the next meeting, we plan to draft these into actual reg language and then put them before you at the next meeting for consideration. But at this point, it's just for discussion purposes. So glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. One question I had is that, as you noted in your remarks just now, that there are clarifying and updates to the regulations in order to conform with code changes. When you come back next month, I'd like to ask that if you could provide for us a recommendation on how the Commission can keep abreast of these code changes so that the regulations don't become out of sync with the code on a go-forward basis, and that what mechanism or process by which we can, stay on top of that so that they'll be more consistent.
Yeah, I'd be glad to provide some information about that, sure.
Thank you. And open this up to my fellow commissioners for any questions or comments. Okay. Public comment on agenda item number 6.
It's not that public employees don't want to come here. You know that public employees has busy schedule. I took my time and represent many people. Of course, I speak on my own. We know the bottom 30 trick about Super PAC. We know conflict of interest. We brought it up. I brought it up. We have many people brought it up because this is not new. The Board of Supervisors and electoral officers, they are related to Super PAC. That is called conflict of interest. They receive thousands and thousands of money to do outreach to misleading the voters of San Francisco and do public events and invite people to mail forums and events only Democrats. Only, no one else but Democrats. Not only Democrats, but the Democrats who are related to Super PAC. That's exactly what conflict of interest means. You guys are lawyers and attorneys. This is exactly what Constitution means. Constitution is not a government of majority rules. Constitution is republic for those who participate. We, the people, have representation, participate in the government. Unfortunately, our government is paid and bought by Democratic parties solely alone. So if you want to help the San Francisco and reduce many of those social problems, like the drug abusers, like the homelessness, die on the street and overdose, it's about time for you to think about a policy, conflict of interest. We brought it up to you. I brought it up to you. Mark Farrell is the most received the cannabis operator donations. Landon Britt is the second one, and other people. Unfortunately, they are the one also appointed you. So I learned a word, it's called deep state. It's a systematic problem. But you also are lawyers and you court judges, and you know what the Constitution upholds to the people. The law and order for San Francisco. I am asking you, if you have a heart for people, you're getting older, you have kids, you have grandkids, you don't want our city just to be controlled by people and continue to support drug dealers and drug our residents and continue to have conflict of interest to get in the office paid by public money because they're the one create the laws. You're the one okay the law. So I'm asking you to stop those illegal practice, to raise government money and to support illegal activities, conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda item number 6?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Charles Marsteller for the record. I appreciate the fact that we're going to punt this for next month to a certain extent so that hopefully we'll have better attendance. The issue certainly deserves it. And there have been a lot of people in the community that have been upset or otherwise interested in this issue, so we should see some engagement. I do want to get it kind of clear what we're doing here. We're doing an initial cut on updating the present law, both in regs and law, to deal with a lot of housekeeping and other policy issues that we could readily do, hopefully before Commissioner Rennie leaves, unfortunately, and on February 1st, or thereabouts. And then my thought is then we'll talk about more substantive matters, such as the problem with qualification of people who are making donations with the goal of qualifying those donations for seed money, essentially, for the candidate that they're supporting. that gets into the question, like, maybe it's time to do a presentation of the Seattle model. There was an NPR report this morning on Morning Edition on the Seattle model, and that Seattle has decided to go ahead with another year of the program as they iron out some of the issues, and they're ahead of everyone else in the country. So that's a very good way for us to see how the system would work or where some of the pitfalls are. So I'm assuming that the commission plans to take up other public finance-related complexities after we do this initial cut on some of the more simple matters and updating of the current law and the regs so that we can be current in our operations for November. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda item number 6? Okay. Agenda item number 7, discussion of the monthly staff policy report.
Thank you, Chair Chu. Agenda item 7 is my monthly report updating you on how the policy division is working on the 3 policy priorities that the Commission identified. So those are the public financing review project, which of course is on today's agenda, but has been continued to January. Likewise, the CFRO regs we just talked about under agenda item 6. And then lastly, online paid political communications, something that is not agendized today, but it's still a policy priority staff are looking at or tracking. Director Pelham will tell you during her report that staff traveled to Philadelphia for the Kogel conference. There was a lot of discussion at Kogel. That's the conference on government ethics laws about online communications. So I think we're still kind of digesting a lot of what we heard there, and might work towards putting up some content on our website to help people kind of understand the issue. That seems to be something people are talking about a lot. So would definitely like to look at that. Aside from the identified policy projects, the second part are what we're calling miscellaneous policy administrative projects, things that aren't identified policy priorities, but that are either left over from earlier or that just are dealt with on an as-needed basis. So you can see those projects here. One is looking at regulation of county central committee candidate committees. So those are candidate committees controlled by candidates running for local county central committees. Staff met with the general counsel and a staff attorney at the FPPC about this, about an opinion request that we had lodged with the FPPC. And at this point, it looks like it's going to take a lot more analysis and development of this project to move it forward. So I think at this point, I'm recommending that if the commission wants to move forward with it, that next month, when the commission looks at the quarterly policy plan of what projects would you like staff to work on as major policy plans, that, you know, if you'd like us to move forward, that you consider this project there. But I think at this point, we're just unable to do it as a quick and easy investigation to see whether or not we're preempted from doing these laws. It's not clear. I think until we make it a bigger project, we won't know. The legislation, I just checked online right now, and I don't have any further update on the whistleblower item. It is still at the mayor's office. So it has been approved on the first reading and finally passed by the Board of Supervisors, so it is in the mayor's office. I do not know what the status is other than that.
Once it is signed, how long before it goes into effect?
30 days.
30 days? Okay.
30.
So presumably, hopefully sometime in early January or early February 2019.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Okay.
And then the other item that became effective yesterday. Today's the 21st, so that became effective yesterday. And then finally, ACAO implementation. The final provisions of the ACAO that have not gone into effect yet will go into effect on the first of the year. So staff is working very quickly right now to make sure that that's rolled out and ready to go. So our electronic disclosure and data analysis team is working really hard on getting the forms ready to be e-filed. We want as much as possible to have electronic disclosures rather than paper forms. So they're working on getting those ready. And then the engagement compliance team is working, and so am I, on making sure that we have explanatory materials up, that once these laws are in effect, that people have resources that they can go to understand them and to make sure that they can
Since the
comply.
law goes into effect on January 1st, will those materials, at least the preliminary ones, be available online for the public to access in, January 1 or shortly thereafter?
Yes, the big one is the candidate guide. So that's, of course, the guide that candidates have to basically give them a crash course on what all the laws are that they need to be aware of when running for city elective office. So I'm working on that one right now to make sure that that's updated. Like, for example, there's now the disclosure of bundling that candidate committees will have to make. So I'm adding a new section to the candidate guide about what is this disclosure, how do you do it, et cetera. So yes, to answer your question, we are shooting to have that out by the first of the year.
And then on the last item, universal electronic filing, is there a timing for a rollout on that? Is that something that we expect to see in, I guess, fiscal year 2019 or first half of 2019 calendar year?
Yeah, I think realistically, just given the scope of this project, it would probably be looking at 2020.
2020.
I think it will take the bulk of next year to really move this ahead. Right now, we're still kind of scoping this and just trying to understand what it would take for it to happen. It could potentially trigger meet and confer, which means that we'll have to talk with bargaining units. It could also involve a lot of electronic systems that we don't have in place right now. So we're trying to figure out what all the moving pieces are, how long each one will take, and how to structure the project to get it done as efficiently as possible. But I think right now it's looking like it's probably a year-long project.
Yeah, the earliest rollout, the earliest effective use of it would be the deadline of 2020 then, like April 1st, 2020.
Yeah, the earliest
At
would
the
be
early-
sometime in
okay,
2020.
Yeah, because we wouldn't make it for 2019 anyway, because it's around the-
I don't think so. I think it's very unlikely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Kopp?
I want to ask you two questions. One is, hasn't this question of local ethics law applying to a political party county central committee been answered by any attorney general's opinion or legislative council opinion?
No.
Is there any comparable such legislation in other states?
That I don't know. I could look into that.
Okay, I mean, to me, it seems so elemental, it's surprising it hasn't been the subject of a legal opinion. The other subject matter are the bills pending in the legislature. And when the summary states support, does that mean the Board of Supervisors and Mayor have agreed in a resolution to support those measures?
No, it means that the FPPC is supporting it.
I will suggest that you make that clear henceforth.
Sure, I can work on that.
All right, and are any of these the subject of action by the Board of Supervisors and Mayor?
Not as far as I know, no.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Any other questions? Commissioner Mendoza? Public comment on item number 7?
Charlie Marsteller again for the record. I'm interested in the quality of your reporting on the activities in the legislature. I think that's the first systematic, this is the first process which I've seen in the city which monitors so effectively. So I know you're getting this from state databases, but I thank you for that because most of the citizens are too busy to go to Sacramento and look all this stuff up. when the governor vetoes an act, it would be useful, for instance, one was vetoed in August, from what I'm reading, yes. It would be useful to see if it's going to be revisited or what the governor's message was, whether or not there's an indication that it's going back to the legislature for amendment. This is a dead duck and it's dead in the water, dead on arrival forever. Just so we know, I think a lot of bills are vetoed with the idea of negotiating with the legislature. So it would be interesting to see if there's some negotiation underway. And I assume the governor would maybe say that in his veto message. And if I'm surprised that they wouldn't maybe note that in the FPPC, or rather, the Secretary of State is doing this database, or is it, I guess, the clerk of the Assembly? But it would be interesting to see what's happening to these things once they're vetoed, because I know that frequently they come back. And I think that's all I wanted to say. And I missed a beat. You were talking about a measure or an item that will be held for future discussion in 2020. What was that again? We just had that discussion and I missed it. Oh, very good. E-filing has been looking good to me, and the data and the dashboard is great. You've done good work. And I'm sure that the mayor and the board is pleased as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda item number 7? Okay.
What?
Commissioner Kopp.
Yeah, to Mr. Ford. Please get me a copy of the governor's message on vetoing AB 2689.
Sure, no problem.
Agenda item number 8. Excuse me. Agenda item number 8. Discussion of monthly staff enforcement report, including an update on various programmatic and operational highlights of the enforcement program's activities since the last monthly meeting.
Thank you, Commissioners. Jeff Pierce, unfortunately, is under the weather today, so was not able to be here at the meeting. But we do have his brief monthly report providing information about the status of matters under preliminary review and matters in open investigation. I think we also have Jeffrey Zumwalt here, one of our investigators, if you have any particular questions. I know Jeff is looking forward to bringing a fuller report to you all at the beginning of the year, but wanted to provide an opportunity, if you have any comments on this report, to answer them to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I have a comment. In the first paragraph, the second sentence states the division now has 101 matters in preliminary review, 85 matters under investigation. I request that henceforth that customary statement also include how many matters in preliminary review the prior month, and how many matters under investigation the prior month, plus how many in preliminary review and under investigation respectively in the prior year, same month.
Prior year, same month. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment on agenda item number 8. Okay. Moving on then to agenda item number 9, discussion of the Executive Director's report. An update of various programmatic and operational highlights of Ethics Commission staff activities since the Commission's last monthly meeting.
Thank you. As you can see from the report for this past month, Deputy Director Gayatri Teikendil, Director of Enforcement and Legal Affairs Jeff Pierce, and Senior Policy Analyst Pat Ford and I were fortunate to attend the this year the 40th anniversary conference of the Council on Governmental Ethics Laws. It is the premier organization and conference for agencies like ours around the country. And this year's conference was in Philadelphia. It's a 3-day, almost 4 days actually, 3.5 days of concurrent sessions and plenary sessions where it's an opportunity for organizations to get together, hear from best practices, trends, emerging issues. And so we provided just a bit of a sense of the conference and some of the sessions that we were collectively able to attend. As Pat indicated in his report, we are still digesting some of that information. We are consciously pulling together resources from the conference to share with our staff colleagues who were not able to attend, because we know there's a lot of information to share. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but we appreciate that we were able to have the travel budget and the training budget to provide staff to attend this opportunity. Also, in terms of the hiring updates, I did want to share news with you that Jackie Hickey, who has been our staff assistant for the last 2 years, received an opportunity to move to the Board of Supervisors clerk's office, where she can help. They are dealing with ethics-related issues and a much broader array of work as well. So that's an opportunity for her to expand her knowledge, skills, and abilities. We were sorry to see her leave last Friday, but we know that she's just here in the building and will still continue to be an asset to the city. So that was good to know. She really was a crucial piece of our operations over the last couple of years. And so we're sorry to see her go, but really do wish her well. Rolina Wang and Connie Hosami, who had also been with us as temporary staff for the last part of this year for help during the elections, also both were able to move on to longer-term positions with the city, so they also left service with the commission last month. But on this week, we did welcome Nike Andino as our new temporary junior management assistant, working with Gaia 3's group. So he will be somebody who you'll become familiar with as a front office staff and helping with engagement and compliance work across the board. Lastly, in terms of the positions that we have been continuing to work with the Department of Human Resources on, 5 positions, they have moved into the interview phase. I am hopeful that we will have interviews being scheduled in the early part of January and that you will, in the new year, see new faces around the table and at our office. But we are making progress. It's a bit slow, but it is steady progress, and I'm hopeful that we'll have some great hires to report to you in the coming months. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them or suggestions for future ED reports.
Any comments or questions for the executive director? Well, good luck with the hiring process. It's always a challenge, and wish everyone the best in their future endeavors. And for Jackie's position, that will be posted in due course in the new year, and you'll start with the hiring, for that as well. Okay, great.
I guess I do have one comment. The budget for the year compared with where we are, what's the explanation of the great variance?
Well, these are revenues, and I think when we look across the board, one of the larger numbers that we will tend to see an increase will be in February, once we've seen the lobbyist registration fees for this fiscal year. So I think that's probably the bulk of the difference that you will notice in future reports.
So we are about not quite halfway through. Or are we halfway? We're 5 months through the fiscal year.
Right. These reflect numbers through the middle of December, so we're just about 4.5 months still through the fiscal year to report on.
Thank you. Public comment on agenda item number 9.
I heard it was rather cold in Philadelphia, and that would have kept your noses to the grindstone indoors, I'm sure. So we can be assured that the taxpayer got good benefit from their expenditure to support our staff in Philadelphia during the bitter cold. I did want to say that Kogel is a real asset to us, and I'm glad that we have the budget now to support that. In the past, this was always a big problem. We could have real strife with the mayor over that issue. And I'm glad that we've now got a way to attend very robustly those conferences, and not only that, but participate in them. One year we did sponsor Kogel here in the city, and I'm sure our time will come again, and probably soon. It's been a while. Again, I'm really pleased on the hiring, and I would be concerned, as Mr. Kopp is, about the accumulation of cases coming up because we're short investigative staffs in whatever policy area or issue, administrative area you want to talk about. And we seem to be on track on the revenues, that's so the public would know. And I would note to your interest, and I'm sure you read it in the paper, about the personal property owner who demolished historic property here in the city, and the robust response by planning for remedy as best as that can be done in such a retrospective way. I am very confused as to how the DBI permitting process would have allowed the house to be demolished, that the inspectors weren't really clear about what the constraints were on the approval of those permits. I assume they were done by planning, initially at least. And I know that planning was very upset when that property, they found out that property had been demolished. It seems to me it was probably done very quickly, as some of these things tend to be. But I will say it's gotten a lot of attention in the press, nationally and internationally. I even heard the story on the BBC. So congratulations to planning for keeping on top of that retroactively. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action regarding status of complaints received or initiated by the, excuse me, by the Ethics Commission. Is there a motion for, did you want to go into closed session? No. Okay. We'll call for public comment on agenda item number 10.
Because this particular item allows you to go into closed session, I'd like to point out that earlier, well, this week, the city attorney filed charges against Big Pharma, which we all know is a cartel controlled by the Dolder Group, which hired Ron K. Noble to engage in a public partnership with Interpol for supposedly doing something with OxyContin. In recent years, we've had the city attorney sue Cocoa Krispies because they have sugar in them. We've had the city attorney sue Chevron because it sells oil. Now we have it suing pharmaceutical companies because they make pharmaceuticals. Back in 2002, this city attorney, who was elected with the ballots floating in the bay, signed off on an audit saying about so-called affirmative litigation, which is you are required, you are affirmed to take action on behalf of others because they don't have access to civil litigation, that he would seek preclearance for all future actions. Now, I don't know whether preclearance existed because the cone of attorney-client privilege was lowered on the process before he decided to blow a whole bunch of taxpayers' money on suing Big Pharma without any public comment. So I don't know what you're going to do in closed session, but here's a question that I have been asking about the city attorney. Why hasn't this city attorney sued Tetra Tech? This city attorney hasn't even tweeted about Tetra Tech. It's the great tweet of silence. Even the federal government signed on to a qui tam action against Tetra Tech. We have our own radioactive love canal here in San Francisco, and absolutely no affirmative litigation by the person who should be doing it. Now we know that, say, Eric Garcetti is a naval intelligence officer. The Los Angeles Times reported so. Maybe the Naval Intelligence Office wants their own person in San Francisco. Why not the city attorney's office? After all, we are the sinking, stinking city by the seawall, restoring the wetlands on the waterfront.
Madam Chairwoman,
Commissioner Kopp.
as always, or as usually always, I appreciate the remarks in public comment, but because there just might be people confused who are watching on cable television, it should be recorded that this commission is not assessed with the responsibilities of the city attorney or responsibilities over the city attorney. The city attorney is an elected official of the city and county of San Francisco. This commission has 4 or 5 different jurisdictional ordinances. And the subject matter of the last public comment is not a part of those legal responsibilities of this commission. And I'll observe again that people have sometimes a misimpression that almost when all else fails, go to the Ethics Commission, and the Ethics Commission will act on some complaint about an elected public official, failure to execute responsibilities, or a city department or employee's failure to act in a certain way. We are not all things to all the people of the city and county of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Commissioner Cox?
I have a request for a preliminary review of statements, activities, and actions which are reflected in a newspaper article that was published 3 days ago. It's about 7 pages. I have underlined what I consider pertinent portions of it. It involves a city employee by the name of Amy Brownell, who is an employee in the Department of Health and in the environmental division of the Department of Health, activity which includes statements made at the request of a developer of the famous Hunters Point Naval Shipyard, and representations made to interested purchasers of housing within that massive shipyard's land development. I ask that the staff commence and complete as soon as possible a preliminary review to determine if there are grounds upon which to begin an official investigation of any violations of law. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Any other commissioners? No? Public comment on agenda item number 11? Okay, there being none. Excuse me. Agenda item number 12, additional opportunity for public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda pursuant to Ethics Commission Bylaws, Article 7, Section 2.
Political stunts can be a form of campaign contributions. Those who have studied history know that nothing invigorates or empowers an authoritarian regime more than a spectacular act of violence, some sudden and senseless loss of life that allows the autocrat to stand on the smoking rubble and identify himself as the hero. It is at moments like these that the public, still in shock from the horror of the tragedy that has just unfolded, can be led into the most ruthless despotism under the mantle of security. Acts of terror and violence never benefit the average man or woman. They only benefit those in power. This is why Nero fiddled while Rome burned. This is why Hitler bombed the Reichstag. This is why there are hundreds of documented examples of governments staging attacks in order to blame them on their political enemies in every civilization, in every culture, in every historical period. Authoritarians have known that spectacular acts of violence help to further consolidate their own power and control. And sadly, throughout history, there have been all too many to be willing to allow such attacks to occur, to pretend that they have not occurred, or to attack their own people in order to further their political agenda. To think that such staged provocations and false flag attacks no longer occur would be as unrealistic as believing human nature has never changed. The Russians are learning how the FSB was caught planting bombs in Moscow during the 1990s, during a terror scare that swept Putin into power. The Canadians are learning how their own provincial police dressed up as protesters in 2007 and threatened violence against the police in order to force a crackdown. And the Americans are learning there were multiple bombs found, dismantled, and taken out of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building on April 19, 1995. They're learning that Timothy McVeigh was in Special Forces. They're learning about 9/11 and the Gulf of Tonkin and Operation Northwoods. And now, in Ventura County, we see the same false flag event taking place that we saw in 1993 at 101 California in San Francisco. And for the record, John Luigi Ferry is alive. At that time, California had a new senator with an agenda looking to have a legacy, a law enforcement community and military fearful of a budgetary crunch, a substance use disorder crisis made possible by an inflow of cheap narcotics from regions destabilized by our country's illegal and covert foreign wars, and it had a government that was desperately unpopular in the face of growing dissatisfaction. If anything, the situation today is worse than it was in the run-up to the Oklahoma City bombing. With media consolidation, meaning groups of concerned citizens are being attacked by the controlled minions on both the left and the right. And now it is not just the militia that is being demonized, it is veterans, gun owners, third-party supporters, libertarians, anti-war protesters, and human rights campaigners. But there's something else different. The people are learning something else about terrorism. They are not terrorists for speaking out. And if there is another staged event to blame on the government enemy of the day, the people will know who to blame.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I just wanted to wish everybody a season's greetings and have a happy new year. See you next month.
And to
Thank
you.
Yes. Before we adjourn, just wanted to echo Mr. Marsteller and wish everyone a wonderful and relaxing holiday and look forward to seeing everyone back here in 2019. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned for 2018. Thank you very much.